Take, I'm Carrie Champion, sitting next to Skip Bayless. We're in studio. Our partner, Stephen A. Smith, is in Philly. How are you?
What's up? Good morning. How y'all doing?
Good.
So you just couldn't take Bristol more than 2 straight days?
2 straight days.
You know what? You need to stop whining. I'm going to be back tomorrow and Friday. Calm down.
Thank you.
He's back for you. He's here for you. Well, what's also here for you today?
I really am.
On First Take, coming up is the College Football Coaches Tour continues. Oklahoma head coach Bob Stoops will join the show. Plus, new head coach at Texas, Charlie Strong, will be at the desk to discuss Longhorn expectations. But let's get right to it, gentlemen. Yesterday, we thought Tony Dungy would issue a statement to clarify his comments regarding drafting Michael Sam. Monday afternoon, while on vacation with his family, he said this: "What I was asked about was my philosophy of drafting, a philosophy that was developed over the years, which was to minimize distractions for my teams. I do not believe Michael's sexual orientation will be a distraction to his teammates or his organization. I do, however, believe that the media attention that comes with it will be a distraction. Unfortunately, we are all seeing this play out now, and I feel badly that my remarks played a role in the distraction." Dungy wished him the best with his NFL career. At Rams training camp yesterday, Michael Sam responded.
Tony Dungy's comments, I don't know if you saw him or heard him. What did you make of that when you saw it or heard it?
Thank God he wasn't St. Louis Rams coach. but I have a great respect for Coach Dungy, and like everyone in America, everyone has entitled their own opinions.
Earlier this morning, Tony Dungy was on the Dan Patrick Show, where he commented further on his remarks. Let's listen.
I had the same kind of comments when we did the piece on Jonathan Martin, and I talked to some general managers, and they said that, Jonathan definitely had the talent to play in the league, but would they want the distraction of everybody following the story and people asking their players over and over, how are things going, what's going on with Jonathan, who's saying what to him, and because of the fact that they didn't view him as a difference maker, they probably wouldn't want the distractions. And I guess that's my point in this whole thing. If we substitute Jonathan Martin for Michael Sam and have the same quotes and the same comment, nobody's going to replay those quotes 2 months or 3 months later and try to say that there's any more to it than what was actually said.
All right, so those were Tony Dungy's remarks, his clarification at length. Skip Bayless, was the clarification enough?
Not for me, it wasn't, Stephen A. Smith. And let me say up front, I do remain a little confused and a little concerned over the timeline of when Coach Dungy gave this interview. He says it was several weeks ago, and he said it was before he knew that the Oprah Winfrey reality show that was set to chronicle Michael Sam's first year with the Rams postponed that he spoke thinking that Oprah was going to follow, or Oprah's show was going to follow Michael Sam, which would obviously heighten the media distraction. The writer of the story says that the interview was given a week or two ago, but Oprah postponed on May 16th, so the interview would have had to have been about 10 weeks earlier. I don't get that. But Tony reiterated his position, and I quote, "What I was asked about was my philosophy of drafting, a philosophy that has developed over many years, which was to minimize distractions for my team." Tony Dungy did not address the obvious and glaring hypocrisy that became the focal point of much of yesterday's criticism, a focal point that you and I debated at length to start off yesterday's show. I'm assuming I have not heard the full text or the audio of the Dan Patrick interview, but I'm going to assume it was also not addressed with Dan Patrick. At least that's what I was told, and I hope I'm accurate about that. But clearly, Tony Dungy was a very strong advocate of Michael Vick's return to the National Football League. You and I debated this. I still believe that at least you would have to give me this much, that Michael Vick was going to be somewhat of a distraction. Whether it was going to be a bigger distraction than Michael Sam is highly debatable. We can leave that. We addressed that yesterday. But you have to agree it would have been Michael Vick was going to be somewhat of a distraction. Yet it surely sounds like that Tony Dungy, if he had been a head coach at that point, would have signed Michael Vick even though that would have been a distraction for his football team. So I still haven't heard from Tony how he can reconcile Michael Vick with Michael Sam.
Well, for me, first of all, I found the commentary, you know, whether it be the statement by Tony Dungy or his subsequent interview on Dan Patrick's show, I found it a bit sad. And the reason why I found it a bit sad is because I found nothing offensive about what Tony Dungy was saying. And I felt like, you know, his willingness to come back and backtrack is indicative and emblematic of the society that we live in today, where all of a sudden you found a man who is an iconic figure, the first African-American coach to win a Super Bowl championship, his accomplishments, his trials and tribulations leading into his ultimate accomplishments, all of this stuff was suddenly put in danger to the point where you had some folks wondering whether or not he'd lose his job at NBC because of these comments. And I find that ultimately sad. To me, why don't we just put a billboard up there and just said, you know, everybody lie. Nobody be real and honest and forthcoming about what they have to say. Now, I find that to be sad. It's a sad commentary on today's society, the industry that we're in. But I'm not going to pretend to be a victim of that because I don't give a damn. I'm going to say what I feel. And I think that when it comes to a guy like Tony Dungy, I think his original comments were authentic. The timing of it and all of this other stuff, all right, fine. If indeed you made these comments before, you know, the OWN network and Oprah Winfrey were going to do a documentary on Michael Sam or whatever the case may be, that would certainly heighten the level of media scrutiny that would have been forthcoming. So I definitely understand that it would have been different if indeed he had made these comments when he thought that Michael Sam was going to have his own show, his own documentary, and having cameras following him around and all of that stuff, as opposed to saying it after all of that stuff was null and void. But in the end, Skip, what it comes down to for me is very, very simple. We're living in a very PC world, and a lot of people are dancing. They're dancing better than the late Michael Jackson, God rest his soul, for crying out loud. I mean, I'm watching this stuff now. Are you trying to tell me that even though we live in a society today where the prejudices and the biases and all of that stuff is completely and utterly unacceptable, and we're living in a more tolerant society more so than ever before, are you trying to tell me that that means that people are not going to be uncomfortable in the locker room, that people are not going to raise their eyebrows, that people are not going to look at Michael Sam and not necessarily welcome him in there, at least emotionally in their own individual psyche? I think that's living in fantasy land. That's not the case. I think Michael Sam knows that. I think individuals and people in the gay community know that. And I think they accept it, and they accept the challenge that comes with it. That's why it's an ongoing battle in the gay community, not only for civil rights and civil liberties and equal opportunity and fairness under the laws of our land, but they also understand that it's a process and it's going to take time to ingratiate themselves with folks on a regular level to the point where this is no longer a story. They understand that that's going to take some time. So if they understand that, why can't the rest of us understand that? And if we all understand that, how come Tony Dungy can't get away with acknowledging that indeed it may be a distraction? I don't understand that. Now, you could compare it to Michael Vick, and we could have that debate again, but to act as if it wouldn't be a distraction at all, it's just ridiculous to me, and it makes me uncomfortable, and it makes me unwilling to continue to have this discussion, Skip, because I don't believe that we can be real about it, and that bothers me. It bothers me that even somebody like Tony Dungy can't be real, and he got to moonwalk, you know, backwards from his comments like this. It's just disgusting to me. It really is.
My head is already starting to hurt because we're about to do it again. I don't understand how you, like Coach Dungy here, you are conveniently omitting the glaring hypocrisy. It was up to Coach Dungy in a lengthy statement or in a probably lengthy radio interview to justify or at least clarify how it was okay to bring in the Michael Vick distraction to Philadelphia when he came out of prison, but it's not okay to bring in the Michael Sam distraction now. If your philosophy is no distractions, then you cannot advocate the return of Michael Vick to any football team, because as a head coach, you would have said no to Michael Vick. Not on moral grounds, but on distraction grounds. I'm sorry, you have to justify your two seemingly contrasting positions here on two issues.
Let's be very, very clear here. First Take is a debate show. 99% of the time, you have your take, I have mine. And if we don't agree, so be it. So you not agreeing with me, let's not confuse that with you not comprehending and understanding what I'm saying. I have no problem with you not agreeing with me, but please don't act like you can't comprehend my position. You're a highly intelligent man.
I totally comprehend your position,
exactly what
because
I'm saying.
You're not taking a position. You need to defend
I
this
am taking
position.
a position.
Okay.
I didn't take a position yesterday. I most certainly did.
Okay.
I took the position yesterday. What I said yesterday, and I will reiterate it again today. Mike, first of all, Tony Dungy wasn't the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's just keep that in mind, okay? So helping Michael Vick along after you retire and you essentially are an ambassador on behalf of the NFL is entirely different than being the coach of the team that's embracing Michael Vick. So let's keep that. That's point number one. Point number two, Michael Vick did hard time in a federal penitentiary for a crime.
Okay.
So when people talk about
not the issue.
I'm answering your question,
okay,
Skip.
okay.
I know that.
It's just
But
distraction
the issue
versus
for me,
distraction.
Skip, is this.
Okay.
But that's where I'm going.
Okay.
Somebody committing a crime and then ultimately being back allowed in the league by the NFL and ultimately being signed by an owner. It's stuff above you. It's the coach. It's the GM. It's the owner. It's the league. They've made this decision. You have to accept it. So as a result of it, he's your teammate, but he's also a convicted felon who did hard time. So the positions are very concrete. You either are for him or you're against him based on his criminal act. There is nothing criminal about being a homosexual or being a gay person. So my point to you is, but we still find ourselves in a position where we have to dance around it. Because the slightest thing that you say that is deemed remotely offensive could get you fired, could get you cut, could get you suspended, etc. And as a result of it, that's what leads to the discomfort. Because if I sit here, if I'm an NFL player, Skip, dare I say, and let's be clear here, we have to go here. I'm uncomfortable with it, but we have to go here. If I'm in a locker room and I am a player and I feel uncomfortable being in the locker room with Michael Sam, if I say something like that, who knows what kind of trouble I'm going to get into. If I sat there and said, you know what, I'm an animal lover. I really don't appreciate what Michael Vick did. I'm not getting in any trouble. There's no trouble. There's no problem. You may not like it, but I'm not getting in any trouble. How can you not understand the difference in that, Skip?
Your points are irrelevant to this discussion of distraction versus distraction.
How?
Do you agree that Michael Vick, the first day he walked onto the football field for the Philadelphia Eagles after he left prison, was he not a media-fueled distraction? Media-fueled, not locker room-fueled. Media-fueled.
I agree.
That's all Tony's saying here.
I agree
it's
with that.
Media-fueled, okay? Michael Sam will, in some way, shape, or form, and to some degree, be a media-fueled distraction, at least for a while, for that locker room, because they will all be asked, how is Michael doing? How is the other players will be driven a little crazy having to answer Michael Sam questions. That's the only point here.
Skip,
it's not about one versus the other.
No, it's not. It's not, Skip. Here's why. Because you're thinking, I'm with you, Skip, on the media attention being comparable. What I'm saying to you, however, is that what you're missing is it's not just the media attention. It's about the fact that you're in a danger zone because the questions that are asked of you about Michael Vick couldn't necessarily get you fired. This, with Michael Sam, could. That's the fact here. You can't escape that. You can't. If the media is bombarding players.
I get it. I don't want to debate to what degree a distraction Michael Sam will be versus to what degree Michael Vick was.
But it's not
I just want you to acknowledge that they were both distractions to whatever degree. So Tony Dungy needs to clarify his position here. If that's the only issue he has with Michael Sam, why didn't he have the same issue with Michael Vick? Distraction, media fuel.
I am more than willing. I got you. I am more than willing to acknowledge that both are a distraction. But I am trying to tell you, you can't ignore the palpable difference between the distractions because of the potential repercussions that exist. How can you compare the two? I might say something about Michael Vick. You might not like it, but this might get me fired. How do you ignore that?
Okay, but that's,
how do you ignore the fact that if you say
to this
one wrong
discussion,
thing, you could get fired? It's not irrelevant.
Okay.
It's very relevant.
It's
and that's where you and I disagree.
It's just distraction versus distraction.
It's extremely relevant. It's extremely relevant. Because that's why we're having this discussion. Tony Dungy was in trouble yesterday, 2 days ago. He was in trouble. Who was in trouble because of Michael Vick? What are you talking about, says who? We gotta really play that game. We got to play that game, Skip. We got to act like Tony Dungy wasn't compelled to come out and give a statement of clarification, or else we got to act like that wasn't true. That's what you're going to sit here and do with a straight face?
What are you talking about? I mean, do you think he was in danger of being
Tony
fired?
Dungy had to come out and clarify. Tony Dungy,
he didn't.
If Tony Dungy didn't come out
and the crux? The crux of the criticism yesterday was over Michael Vick, and he does not talk about Michael. I have the whole statement here. There's not one mention of the Michael Vick episode. Okay, so that was
if Tony Dungy didn't clarify his statements about Michael Sam, the article written in the Tampa Tribune, if he didn't clarify his position on that, it would have been, the controversy would have continued to swell. Are we going to deny that?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean that all I know is he didn't clarify the position. You're ignoring the most obvious part of this whole discussion. So I'm going to have to just agree to disagree. You don't want to deal with it, so I can't.
Fine.
I'm trying. You don't want to.
Dealing with it.
Next question.
I think you're not dealing with it. I'm not running. Nobody's backing up. Hold on, Kerry. Nobody backing up from you. I'm right here. I said my position. My position is clear. Just because you don't want to accept it, don't accuse me of running from it. I'm the one that's not running from it. I'm the one that's pointing out what's real. You're the one that's not doing it. Media distraction. It ain't going to get somebody fired with Michael Vick. It may get somebody fired over Michael Sam. That's a fact. That's a fact.
I could debate that all day long, and we did it yesterday, and I stand by what I said yesterday, but I don't want to dredge it all back up.
And you
know why I don't want to.
Nobody backing up.
Okay.
I'm here.
Earlier this morning,
I'm here tomorrow, too.
Michael Sam's coach, Jeff Fisher, was on Mike and Mike, and he said that he was not a distraction. Michael Sam does not get special treatment, and he believes he will handle everything well. You gentlemen clearly disagree, so you agree to disagree. Let's move on. Let's go to the NBA. After the break, we'll talk about Donald Sterling. He continues to prolong the process